Hi, I'm Paul Scheider from Hedgehog Leatherworks. Today I'm going to be showing you how to craft some basic stone blades for the purposes of wilderness survival. And I want to preface this video by saying that I am not an advocate for going into a potentially dangerous situation unprepared. I think that if you're going out into the woods, especially if you're going alone, you ought to have a basic wilderness survival kit, and in that kit you should have a good sharp knife. Now, having said that, I think there are a couple places where the ability to make stone blades fits in very well into the repertoire of potential skills that the survivalist could have. Number one, first and foremost for me, is that when I come out into the woods, what I'm really after is a closer connection to nature. And going with less and less and less modern equipment makes that connection, for me, greater and greater. Because when you come out here and you are able to take literally almost everything that you need from nature to sustain yourself, it gives a tremendous sense of satisfaction, especially when you contrast living out here to the rush and hustle type of living that we do in everyday life. And the second reason that I really like using minimalist skills, particularly in this case stone tools, is because when you force yourself to do things the hard way, then later on, when you go back to using that modern tool, in this case a knife that has the latest and greatest steel and a sheath with all the accessories and things like that, your ability to use that tool will be so much more enhanced than if you hadn't forced yourself to do things the hard way. So, with that being said, let's get started on crafting some basic stone blades. The very first thing you're going to want to do is look at the landscape and figure out where the best selection of rocks are going to be. Now, this is going to vary extremely depending on where you are in the world. For me, I know that I'm in the Midwest in the United States, and typically if I go downhill, I'm going to find a creek, and in that creek, more often than not, there is going to be a good selection of rocks that break well and are good for making stone tools. Let's go take a look in this creek. I've been walking around the creek for a few minutes and I've collected a few samples of rocks, and I'm going to show you some very important things about these. Number one, when you're walking around a creek looking for good stones for blades, you're going to want to grab rocks that are pretty large. The reason is because over the millions of years that these things have been out here, they've been weathering, and the outside of them has been getting saturated with water and then freezing and then heating, and all of this process creates a very rough outer surface that makes for very bad stone blades. So this layer is called the cortex, the outer layer, and then the good rock is typically on the inside. If you pick a small rock like this that has cortex on it, by the time you chip through all that cortex, what's left on the inside is not going to be enough to make a good blade. So pick a larger rock. That way when you get through the cortex, you're going to have some good quality material. The second thing is to check for the quality of the material. The way you do that is by finding the two potential rocks or the one potential rock and clacking them together. Now, if it makes a sound that is similar to glass being clacked together, that's a very good thing, and you know that the rocks will nap out very well. So that has a very good clack, a little bit of a ring to it. I know that these are going to make good blades. Now, the last thing that you're looking for out here is what's called the hammerstone. And I'm going to show you how this works in just a moment. Basically, the hammerstone is going to be held in one hand and used to strike off blades from the good material rock that you're going to be using. Important characteristics of a hammerstone are that it fits in your hand comfortably and that it has at least one good rounded edge on it, because that's what you're going to be striking with. Okay, now the real magic of making these stone blades lies in a concept called conchoidal fracture. Conchoidal fracture is simply the way that force travels through the rock. If you've ever looked at a window that's been shot by a BB gun, you'll see that the BB strikes it and then it makes a cone-like fracture that pops out the other side of the window pane. This physics is exactly what is going to allow us to break off predictable stone blades. And I drew up a little sketch before I left today of how conchoidal fracture works. Now, for a moment, let's only look at the solid colored lines. As you can see here, this is the cone shape that results from a force that is delivered straight on. So when we strike with our hammerstone, we're going to strike in a very specific spot, and then that force that goes straight down is going to then expand out and create this cone-like shape, just like a BB hitting glass. Now, the dashed lines here represent the angle that we're going to strike at with our hammerstone. It's going to come down in a curved fashion as we swing our arm. And then this dashed line over here represents the actual material that is going to create the blade. So this is going to be the stone that we're chipping away at. So the hammerstone is going to come down. It's going to hit in a very specific spot, which I'm going to show you in a minute. It's going to create this cone-like fracture. And as that fracture travels through our material, it's going to chip off a blade from the underside of the rock right here. Okay, let's actually do it.